Repeating lies about the 2020 election and refusing to commit to accept the results if he loses again in 2024. Chief Washington correspondent John Carl has the story. Good morning, John.
Good morning, George. And a reminder of what happened in 2020, Donald Trump is once again refusing to say whether he will accept the results of the presidential election, and he is suggesting there could be violence if he loses. Donald Trump is making it clear he is only ready to accept the results of the election if he likes them, telling the Milwaukee Journal, quote, "If everything's honest, I'll gladly accept the results. I don't change on that. If it's not, you have to fight for the right of the country." In another recent interview, Trump dismissed the threat of violence by his supporters, saying, quote, "I think we're going to have a big victory, and I think there will be no violence."
All right, guys, so once again, we got to talk about the mainstream liberal media having a full-blown meltdown over the fact that Trump came out and said that he would gladly accept the results of the 2024 election if everything is honest. Now, how did the mainstream liberal media interpret this comment from Trump? Well, they came out and said, well, Trump says he's not going to accept the results of the 2024 election if he loses. Well, that's not what he said, right? That's not what he said, okay? I mean, personally, considering how there are political persecutions against him now, considering how Democrats are going out of their way through the court system to try to rig the 2024 election against Trump, considering how all of the mainstream liberal media is against Trump, considering how these big tech platforms censor in favor of Biden, considering how, quite literally, the establishment is 100% against Trump and for Joe Biden, I'm not sure if I can say that is fair as it is right now, okay? I'm just saying. I'm not sure if, Trump is playing on the same even playing field as Joe Biden. I wouldn't make that argument. In fact, I would say he has a significant disadvantage, but despite the disadvantage, he's still winning in the polls, right? So again, that tells you how good of a situation Trump is in regards to his campaigning and how the American people are feeling about Joe Biden versus Trump's presidency. So with that being said, we have to react to the mainstream liberal media, mainly Maxine Waters, losing her mind over these comments from Trump to the point where she's going to demand that the DOJ investigate Trump supporters because of the possibility of violence if Trump loses the election. In my opinion, I find this to be hilarious because if you really want to be investigating who is likely to commit violence based off who loses the presidential election, you probably should look at the left because they have committed acts of violence every single time they don't get their way. I mean, if you need evidence, just look at what the left-wing extremists are doing right now. And it's probably going to ratchet up considering how Israel is continuing to ignore Biden in regards to not invading Rafah. And it looks like that invasion is imminent, like it's going to happen. And if that happens, the left-wing extremism is going to get out of control in this country, okay? I mean, we're going to see something that we probably haven't seen in this country before since BLM. Like, it's going to be at the level of BLM. So I find it to be hilarious how these people come out here and warning about violence from Trump supporters when they need to be worried about the violence that's happening from the left, okay? Because that's who commits a vast majority of violence in this country. But anyways, let's get into it.
Waters, your reaction to Trump saying, if everything's honest, everything's above board, to his point of view, he'll gladly accept the results of the country. But if not...
Well, first of all, you can't trust anything that Donald Trump has to say. No matter if he loses, he's going to say that it was fraud. He still has not accepted what happened in the last presidential election. And so we have to be very concerned about a former president of the United States talking about attacking his own country, talking about perhaps a bloodbath, talking about perhaps there's going to be trouble. He said it in so many different ways. We should take him seriously. Mm-hmm. This man does not believe in the Constitution. He wants to be a dictator. This is a dangerous human being. And we have to know what our country is going to do to protect us from him. Well, yes.
No, yeah. I know you can keep going for this whole hour, Congresswoman, on that. But speaking of the Constitution, Trump says in that time interview that he would not seek to overturn or ignore the Constitution's prohibition on a third term. So the American people believe that. Do you believe that?
No.
Okay, so you see how the mainstream liberal media plays these games, right? So they come out here and they say, well, Trump's going to issue threats of violence if he loses. Well, again, I think that what you really should be concerned about is what happens if Biden loses, because we've seen violence happen in this country because of Trump winning the election in 2016. We saw that. In fact, Bill Maher had to come out here and to reiterate that, well, if Trump wins, I'm not going to lose my mind this time.
I'm not going to lose my nervous system about Trump again. If he ends the world, he's going to end the world. I'm not going to fucking go nuts again if he wins another term. I just can't.
I hope you have that wherewithal.
Well, what are you going to do?
I don't know. I'm trying to stay right there.
Yes.
I'm trying to stay
what, are you
right
going
there.
to get anxious like a millennial? No,
yeah,
it's
right. Exactly.
You know,
that is,
I mean, that generation, especially the Z generation, are
yeah. So again, if you're worried about acts of violence happening because of the results of the presidential election, you again need to be worried about it happening from the left. These people have shown you that every time they don't get their way, they're going to commit acts of violence. It has been happening for the last 4, 5, 6 years, and it continues to happen to this day, but yet this is the conversation that they're having, okay? But again, this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing for Trump, right? And this is why Trump, honestly, is winning when it comes to the overall polls, and also when you look at this question of democracy, why Biden's not winning on this, right? Which is funny because the mainstream liberal media, all they've done is fearmonger so much about democracy, Trump's threat to democracy, but it seems like the American people aren't buying into it. Well, the reason why is because of stuff like this. So Trump comes out and says, contrary to the suggestions of some supporters, Trump tells Time he would not seek to overturn or ignore the Constitution's prohibition on a third term. Okay, so Trump's coming out here directly and saying, yeah, no, I'm not going to try to seek another term, right? I have one more term in office and then I'm done. And this goes directly against the mainstream liberal media narrative that, well, if Trump gets elected, he's going to try to stay in office forever. He's going to become a dictator. Trump says, no, I'm not going to do that, which, again, by the way, I mean, there is no realistic mechanism in which he would be able to pull that off. Like, that, it's just not possible in today's political environment. It's not possible given the makeup of Congress right now and the makeup that it would be at the time. Like, realistically, it's just not possible. So, again, to even suggest that the president would be able to do something about that to try to get a third term is just ridiculous. It's nonsense. It's not even a conversation worth having. But anyways, Trump comes out and confirms, hey, yeah, I'm not going to do that. The mainstream media, do you really believe that? Again, this is what Jonathan Sweetheart is saying, right? Sweet cheeks, okay? He's just as sweet as Don Lemonade talking to Maxine Dusty Walls Waters, right? I don't get it, man. I really don't. It's like, yo, he comes out here and say, yeah, I'm not going to seek a third term. Do you really believe that? It's like, come on, bruh. Again, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
No, absolutely not. As I said, you can't believe anything that Donald Trump has to say. Donald Trump will do any and everything that he can possibly get away with. He does not at all support the Constitution of the United States of America. This is a man who we'd better be careful about. And I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the Justice Department and I'm going to ask the president to tell us what they're going to do to protect this country against violence if he loses. I want to know about all of those right-wing organizations that he's connected with, who are training up in the hills somewhere and targeting, what communities they're going to attack. We need to know now, given that he's telling us that there's going to be violence if he loses. We need to know what his...
Again, this is not what he said. He didn't say there was going to be violence if he loses, okay? He essentially suggested that he doesn't know, okay? But we do know for a fact that there probably will be violence if Biden loses, okay? And with that being said, if you're talking about going to the DOJ to investigate people and the likelihood of violence happening, if, a presidential candidate loses, again, they should be investing in the left, right? That's who they should be taking their time to investigate. To be quite honest with you, again, it's just so funny to me, but listen to this woman. She's trying to say that I'm going to go to the DOJ and Biden and tell them to essentially go after people who I disagree with politically because I believe they're going to be violent if Trump loses the election. So you need to be investigating these people. You need to be spying on these people. You need to be going after these people. Again, while left-wing extremists are currently committing acts of violence in this country right now. Again, the hypocrisy is stunning. It really is.
plan is and how we're going to be protected.
Well, Congressman Garcia, one of the things we know, especially from that Time magazine profile of Trump, it points out that there are 4 separate entities, including the Heritage Foundation's Project 25, that are working behind the scenes to create a government in waiting, complete with Trump loyalists and day one plans to uproot whatever guardrails remain against presidential overreach. Please explain why this isn't hyperbole. This is real.
This is dangerous. And I think what they're preparing is to destroy our democracy, the way we have elections in this country. And the Congresswoman is absolutely correct. Make no mistake, and let's be crystal clear. If Donald Trump gets reelected, there is no doubt that he will try to stay in office beyond his 4-year term. He will destroy this country, our democracy. He'll change the way we run elections. He'll attack secretaries of state, and he'll do everything he can in his power to stay in office. And the country that we know of today, we will no longer have. It's sobering, it's scary, but we have to take it seriously. This is a person that we have to take at his word. And so we have to do everything that we can between now and the election to strengthen, support our local electoral officials, ask the Department of Justice to be prepared, and most importantly, to reelect, of course, President Biden.
Wow. The desperation here is amazing. It really is. Because that's what this is. They're just saying stuff, right? They're throwing things at the wall. Let's see what sticks, okay? Let's just say that, again, the world's going to end if Trump's, reelected, right? He's never going to leave, okay? He's going to go out to secretaries of state. He's going to overthrow the Constitution. It's the end of democracy. They're just throwing things at the wall. Let's see what sticks, right? That's what MSNBC is doing here. Because a real journalist would actually provide some pushback on that and say, well, a lot of these things were said before the 2016 election. Trump got elected and none of these things happened. Now, January 6th did happen. However, if the goal was to actually overturn the election, then it failed, okay? And Trump ultimately ended up leaving office. So realistically, what's the threat, right? Realistically, what's the threat? We didn't get in a nuclear war. The world didn't end. The country was actually in a pretty good place, okay, before the pandemic. None of these things that you guys said that Trump is going to do happened in his first term. So, again, I think a lot of this is hyperbole, right? That's what it is. It's hyperbole. But when it comes to the Project 2025 stuff, they're upset, they're mad, and they're afraid because essentially Project 2025 is a plan to help Trump be more efficient, right? To correct the mistakes that he made in his first administration and to have a plan in place to get things done immediately once he gets into office. And that is a good thing, right? And this is why they're so upset, because they're like, oh, man, Trump being more effective, Trump learning from his mistakes, oh, we can't have that, right? This guy is a huge threat, again, because he's going to be better in his second term. And that's what people are afraid of the most. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.